Bobby, we had a hearing this week in Congress, in the Judiciary Committee, and the hearing title was this: Abuses by the Obama Administration. That was the title of the hearing. And they only gave me 5 minutes. And when I saw the title, I didn't know whether to start with Solyndra and government picking one industry over another and one applicant for a loan proposal over another, or government helping their friends write applications for loan proposals, or government employees using their private email instead of their public email so we wouldn't find out about Solyndra. I didn't know whether to start there or whether to move to laws that have been passed by Congress, but this executive branch, headed by Barack Obama, just doesn't see fit to enforce. The Defense of Marriage Act was passed by the House, the Senate, and signed by a president, if memory serves, named Bill Clinton, who just spoke up the road in Charlotte at the Democrat National Convention. It's the law of the land. And for this executive branch to refuse to enforce the Defense of Marriage Act, let me tell you the way the Constitution works. If you don't like a law, you change it. You do it the right way. You don't just decide you're not going to enforce it. So we moved from the Defense of Marriage Act to our immigration laws. Because as you know, Secretary Napolitano sent out a memorandum that we're not going to enforce our immigration laws. I know that has nothing to do with the fact that we're in an election year and she wants to court Hispanic voters. It just happened to be a coincidence. But I know a little something about prosecutorial discretion. I know a little something about it. Prosecutorial discretion, as Alan Witzel will tell you, is if you take a case-by-case basis, it is not summarily announcing ahead of time in a memo that we're not going to enforce certain sections of the law. That's not prosecutorial discretion. That's anarchy. So do we go there? Do we go to Solyndra? Do we go to the Defense of Marriage Act? Do we go to the failure to enforce our immigration laws? Or do we talk about executive privilege and how Senator Obama had a very different view of executive privilege than President Obama? And it got me thinking this hearing this week, what an interesting exercise it would be to see a debate between Senator Obama and President Obama. The problem is MSNBC wouldn't know who the heck to pull for in that debate. Or should we talk about the transformation of our Energy Secretary, Stephen Chu, who at one point advocated for European-level gas prices, $10 a gallon. And then he had an epiphany about the same time as his confirmation hearing, where he didn't believe in European-level gas prices anymore. Or should we talk about recess appointments, whether it's the NLRB or Richard Cordray and the CFPB, and how the definition of recess means something different when the Republicans in the White House than if the Democrats in the White House. Let me tell you the chronology of the recess appointment. There was a vacancy for 6 months. The president waited until mid-December to send a name to the Senate, and 2 weeks later he makes a recess appointment. Under his definition of recess, it includes lunch breaks and naps in the U.S. Senate. And let me tell you, with the exception of our guy, there are a lot of naps being taken in the U.S. Senate over the last 2 years. Do we talk about that abuse of this executive branch and this administration, or do we go to something called fast and furious? Do we go to this administration's refusal to turn over documents to a constitutionally constructed oversight committee? We had to sue him in court. We had to hold his attorney general in contempt of court, and we still don't have the documents. Or do we, under this heading, this hearing title called Abuses of this Administration, do we talk about the fact that the Department of Justice, not the Department of Politics, not the Department of let me get reelected, the Department of Justice sent a demonstrably false letter to a committee of Congress, and it took them 10 months to correct it? I decided to skip all of those because I want to go straight to Kathleen Sebelius and her desire to balance your right to the free exercise of religion with her desire to get her reelected. If you have not watched the video of Kathleen Sebelius before the Education and Workforce Committee, I want you to watch it, because I asked her to please explain to me the constitutional underpinnings of her decision to require employers and insurance companies to provide insurance policies that include abortifacients. I want to know what your constitutional authority is to make people violate their religious views. And she could tell me the political ramifications, and she could tell me the electoral college ramifications, but the look on her face when I asked her about the Constitution was stunning. So, Madam Secretary, from Greenville, South Carolina, I want you to spend more time reading the Hatch Act, which she was just found in violation of, more time reading the Constitution, and less time trying to figure out how you're going to get your boss reelected at the expense of my First Amendment rights. Now, I want to say this in conclusion. And Bobby, I'm going to do if it's okay with you, Mr. McLean, just like they did in Charlotte, I'm going to put this to a vote. Is it okay for me to say God bless you? Yeah! Is it okay for me to say God bless the United States of America?